Good morning, good evening, ignorant millennials. How you guys doing? Good afternoon if you're catching us during your lunch break or whatever time it is that you're catching us today. I'm your host, Ked. I'm not alone. I'm rolling with a handsome gentleman here on my right-hand side. But before I allow him to introduce himself, I'm just going to ask that you please like, subscribe, and share the video with your friends and family, because today we have a very interesting topic that we'll be discussing. We'll be discussing everything solar and renewable energy with the gentleman on my right. And without any further ado, let me allow him to introduce himself.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me here. My name is Vincent Maphosa. I'm a guy who's extremely passionate about energy, the energy sector in Africa. I'm the CEO of a company called Wetility, which is at the forefront of changing the energy landscape for small businesses and homeowners.
Okay. So Wetility, do you guys only deal with renewable energy, and which type of renewable energy if you deal with renewable energy?
Yeah, so ultimately what Wetility is about creating a platform of energy consumers, right? Particularly in the underserved home market and also small businesses. And our primary product at this moment, at this point in time, is rooftop solar energy, hybrid rooftop solar energy, to be more specific, which is your solar panels, your hybrid inverter, and your battery pack. And we serve, small, from as small as 2 kilowatt peak, which is about 6 panels, to very sort of large businesses, so we can power up a mall that's about 1 megawatt.
Okay. I want us to take a few steps back, like Wetility.
Yeah.
When was it started? Who owns it? And how many people do you guys generally employ, and so forth?
Yeah, so it's a business that I think was probably 10 years in the making. So from a background perspective, I've always worked in the energy sector, and I became very deeply passionate about it and didn't want to do anything else. So I worked as an industry analyst, specifically focusing on the energy sector. I worked as a strategy manager in management consulting and at a corporate that's in the energy space. So starting the business was a natural transition from what I used to do on a day-to-day basis. And when I went out to look for co-founders for the business, I chose people who have a deep understanding of the space, but also complement some of my strengths with a different perspective on how to do things.
Okay.
So I think we've been around since 2019. That's when the company was formally registered.
Yes.
But in terms of the experience and the idea, it's probably 5 years prior to that.
Okay.
I always knew that this is where I wanted to be. There was a market, right, for it, and it also comes from a deep desire to provide energy consumers with a different experience, right? And that's the genesis of the business. So we employ 5 people, but we make use of a lot of subcontractors, especially installers. So I can't really give you the numbers off the top of my head, but there's about 5 installation teams that we can call on at any point in time to assist us with the actual execution. So we do the engineering, procurement, they do the installation, and we do the post-installation remote monitoring and support, so the operation and maintenance. And it varies from minimum 5 years to about 20 years.
Okay. So right now, if I'm sitting at home and I want solar energy, who do I contact? Do I contact you guys, or who do I contact first?
Yeah, so you can just go on our platform, right? So we have on our website, www.wetility.energy. If you're a homeowner, all you need to do is punch in your address and how much you're paying on a monthly basis for electricity. And then we have a tool on there called a rapid calculator. So based on your address and your monthly electricity bill, it generates a recommendation on the type and size of system that would most likely suit you. And then thereafter, you have the option of either choosing to receive a proposal immediately or booking yourself in for a consultation. So we have a 20-minute consultation where we basically take you through the ins and outs of what a solar system is. We're trying to simplify the process ultimately, because a lot of people want to get a solar system of their own or want to get some assistance with either lowering their bill or having some power during a load shedding or during a power outage, and they just don't know how. Right, and that's a big issue for them. So our platform, you receive your proposal within the next 24 hours. You have a look at it. It's very simplified, and if you want to have a consultation, we take you through everything, placing the panels on your roof. We do the design with you, so that you have a very good understanding of what you're going to get at the end of the day. So I mean, we're one of many other companies. Other companies have a different approach, but our philosophy is if people are going to derive the greatest benefit from it, it has to be simple, right? And we're trying to simplify it, but also at the same time simplify it, but in the back end, continue to provide you with the best possible service, the best possible product offering there is in the market.
Okay. Yeah. So you talked about going fully off grid and partially off grid for load shedding. Let's start with generally the option of partial. Like I only want when there is load shedding that at least for that 4 hours or so, if you're in Gauteng, that I have power.
Yeah.
So how much would that roughly cost for an average home? An average home would be like a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's a general misconception about or just around what going off grid actually means. So for us, and this is the definition that myself and my CTO always have a conversation around, is if one decides to go off grid, they should be at least powered up for 72 hours where there's basically no grid power. That's a solid enough definition.
So 4 days.
4 days. So you can imagine how much 3 days. So you can imagine how much battery storage you need in order to achieve that.
Yes.
So that's for us is a good definition of going off grid.
Yes.
And so you get a lot of installers or people in our space who promise customers that they can take them off grid. In our view, that's not being as honest as one should be, because if say for example a day like this, it's a bit overcast, right? And you don't have enough power in your batteries, or you don't have enough battery capacity to remain powered up for the rest of today, then that's not an off-grid system.
Yes.
It's probably a hybrid system.
Yes.
So what a hybrid system is it's one that balances supply from your various sources and optimizes use, basically. So a hybrid system would include your solar panels, your battery, and the grid. So the energy generated from those three would work in tandem to achieve the most efficient, supply of power.
Yes.
And what you typically have with a hybrid solution, if it's well designed or well spec'd, gives you about 50 to 70% of your total energy consumption. Then the other 30%, you always rely on the power grid.
Yes.
So on a day like this, for example, it's overcast, your panels are not producing as much power as they typically would. You are using a combination of whatever power is in your batteries and the grid,
yes.
right? But when the sun is shining and everything is up, you would then use, a lot of the power from the solar panels.
Yes.
And then there's another one which is called a grid tie solution, which is one that doesn't provide you with backup power in the event of a power outage.
Wow.
All you have is if the sun is up, I'm saving on my electricity costs because I'm generating power from the sun.
Yes.
Grid tie system, when the grid switches off, the solar panels switch off as well. So it's just one that helps you save on your costs, and you can have that in your home. It doesn't need batteries, it doesn't need storage. Okay. And what we deliberately did as a company is we chose the hybrid solution, mostly because people don't have that much capex. They don't have a lot of money lying around that they can, outlay 500,000-600,000 rand to go, to some degree, to a large degree off grid. So we found a safe middle, which is also, I wouldn't say a safe middle, but it's an efficient way of viewing the sector, right? And if you're looking at hybrid, we guarantee you about 4 to 8 hours of battery backup in the event of an out-and-out outage. However, when the sun is available, you're saving regularly. You're saving, on power usage quite consistently. Yeah. When the sun goes down, you discharge power from your batteries, basically for a certain amount of time, and then once that gets to a level of discharge, then you stop discharging, and then you start drawing power from the grid. And a typical system for a 2 to 3 bedroom home, you're looking at least between 100 and 130,000 rand. That's the cash, right?
Okay.
But what we went a step further and said, look, energy consumers or homeowners or small businesses are paying for power on a monthly basis anyway. You're paying 1,000, 2,000 rands every month. And if we transform this, high capex amount into a lease that you would pay every month in lieu of paying your power utility slightly more because you don't have the system. And then we just, make it into bite-sized chunks for people to understand what's actually happening and for them to actually be able to afford it.
Yeah.
So we have a thing called the paired pace lease, which allows you to have the benefit without outlaying the capital up front.
Okay.
But because you pay for electricity on a monthly basis, you don't feel the pain. And what we typically, provide as a value proposition is you start saving money from month one.
Yeah.
Your electricity bill just becomes cheaper, right?
Okay.
And from month one, you continue paying your power utility for the electricity that they provide you with. Then you pay for the lease, but when you sum those two versus if you didn't have that option, you'll be paying more with the power utility, and that's what we've gone into the market with. So that's one. And then for larger sized homes, we have a power purchase agreement where you pay for every kilowatt hour in a similar manner to how you pay a utility, and you only pay for what you consume. But that's for larger, more energy intensive homes, and for businesses as well, right? Commercial entities, especially ones that have the energy intensive hours of the day are during the day when the sun is up. It makes it predictable for us as well in terms of how we collect our revenues or how we provide the service in that manner.
Okay, so let's go to the option that you mentioned, like for like mid-size or average homes, right? So in terms of the lease agreement that would exist there, what's the typical duration of the lease? Can I adjust and say, I'm fine with 5 years, I'll be able to pay you like 5,000 for the next 5 years?
So the starting point for the lease agreement is 20 years. And the simple reason behind it is you probably enter into a 20-year mortgage when you buy a place. And you anticipate that you will pay for electricity for 20 years. So that's the starting point. But a customer can opt to pay for it in 15, 10, even 5 years. And within the lease terms are the first 12 months. After the first 12 months, you can choose to buy out the system outright. Okay. So you can if you come up with a large sum of money and then you want to buy the system outright. But even when you buy it from us, we still provide you with the minimum of 5 years maintenance and lifetime remote monitoring. But if the system is on a 20-year lease, we provide that maintenance throughout the entire duration of the lease.
Okay.
Yeah. And ultimately what we're trying to do is, as I said, we're creating a platform of energy users where the more customers we have on our platform, the better for us in terms of the learnings that we can draw from some of the information and the data on consumption. That will allow us to provide more tech that leads us to a better energy experience for homeowners. So a good example is things like home automation, right? We all know about it. We've seen the ads where people are telling Alexa to switch off their lights and that kind of stuff, right? But people haven't taken the step or the next step in the journey, mostly because they aren't sure if it's actually going to work. Whereas if you have a data-driven platform where you can actually prove it, right, with customers' consent on, we want to use the data to do this type of, simulation and that kind of thing, then you're in a great space. And then the next thing, which is imminent, even though South Africa is about 10 years behind, is EVs. And then there's things like with electric vehicles, right? It's about charging and discharging. So currently the power flow is one way, right? It's to charge the vehicle. But you're sitting on a battery which is probably 96 kilowatt hours or whatever the case may be. And the next trend now is going to be grid or vehicle to grid. So actually you have an electric vehicle, and that electric vehicle can power up your entire house just by being connected to the system. So ultimately that's where a business like ours wants to get to. But for now it's about serving customers on an issue that's affecting them at this very point in time, which is you're getting load shedding. It's frequent, it's regular in some cases. Some people experience load shedding at the same time almost every week and that kind of thing. And the home has become the center of everything, and the home needs to remain connected. So you lose productive hours by not being connected, and people just need to be connected. And that's what we're saying is the problem we're trying to solve right now. But ultimately, we're building a business which is a platform business.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then, how then do you guys feel about generally UPSs and whatever?
Yeah. So the thing is, what we try to solve two problems, which is energy savings from a cost perspective, and secondly, to provide you with backup power in the event of a power outage. So a thing like a UPS specifically for certain IT equipment, that's perfect. It works, it solves the problem, right? The same would apply for guys who opt for backup generators. Obviously, from our perspective, it's just not, it's not progressive, mostly because it's carbon based.
Yeah.
So the capex on it is, how do I put it? It's not that expensive, but the operating costs on running a generator are significant, right? And it's just not an appropriate solution, especially for homeowners and small businesses, especially going into the future, right? However, with hybrid, right, with hybrid solutions, you don't completely eliminate anything. You say, let's work together progressively towards the most optimal solution. So with a hybrid solution at the right size, you can also integrate a backup generator. So I think the ultimate goal with this is to arrive at a point where we use the resources that are available without going into these, because the learning curve with new technologies is usually very steep, and it involves a lot of capital going into it. And we're saying there's other ways that we can do it, but let's start out with what's available, the resources that are there, and then we can migrate towards something slightly different.
Okay. So then back to the hybrid option for the mid-sized home, basically. So throughout your experience and so forth, typically what is the best case scenario, or the best that you've heard, like one of your clients said, listen, you've helped me save 1,000 rands a month on electricity. What was it? What is that amount?
So
and what was it?
we have a customer, right, who his bill was around 3,500 rand per month, right? And the primary reason is, there's tiny things in your home that you never really take cognizance of, but they have a significant impact. So he had a lot of these downlighters.
Yes.
That you get in kitchens. Like you've got a big kitchen, you've got all these downlighters in this lounge. And these were incandescent downlighters. So just his kitchen was 1 kilowatt of lights, right? And his bill was around 3,500. So we went in there, we gave him not even a very big system, right? A 3 kilowatt system with a hybrid inverter and 4.8 kilowatt hours of battery storage. And then our advice was, let's change some of these incandescent downlighters to halogen downlighters to LEDs, right? And his bill went from 3,500 to about 1,400 rand.
Sure.
Right. So in our simulation, the numbers we use, and this is a very good simulation, is about 20 to 30%.
Yeah.
But what happens now is, in reality, when a person decides or becomes conscious of information that they didn't have, right? Because when we get to a person's home and we do the site inspection and we do the energy audits, we're continuously giving you tips on how you can save more energy, right? And habits change. And with the shift in habits, attitudes change. Because a habit is one thing, but once your attitude towards energy use in your home changes, that's it. The game has changed completely. I'll give you a good example. Some people run their dishwashers and washing machines at night. If you have a rooftop solar solution and you run your dishwasher and washing machine at noon, you're benefiting. You're definitely saving a lot more than if you're running it at night. So it's things like that it's just habit forming, and the habits change, and people adopt it, and they start to improve. So that's one good example, from 3,500 to 1,400 rand. And this is a family that recently had a baby. So when we look at their portal, right, you can tell that the geyser goes on a lot more and that kind of thing. But they've just changed their attitude towards certain things. So, with babies, you can also time when they sleep, right, and that kind of stuff. So the baby sleeps throughout the night. The energy intensive activities around the baby are during the day. You get what I mean? So there's a lot that happens in terms of that. And part of what we are trying to do, and we're probably going to carry the torch for the industry in many ways, is simplify the information, educate the customers, and help them to understand. So it's one thing to give people a lot of information and whatnot, right? We don't want to speak in fancy industry terms that are confusing and complicated for customers. Make them understand. Once they understand it, they get it, it becomes simple, and then they adopt it. And it has the effect of, the best source of marketing for us is word of mouth. You'll be amazed at how often people talk about these things, and they'll tell their neighbor, tell their mom, tell their dad, and ultimately we create a community of energy users that have a very strong view on what needs to happen in their homes with regards to energy use. Okay,
so if I want a solar system at my house, are there any municipal bylaws or regulations that need to be followed?
You have to comply, right?
Can we just plug it in at any home?
No, you have to comply. So there's a municipal application that you need to make, an SSEG application. And you need to be issued with a COC, right? Certificate of Connection once it's done, right? And aside from that, right, it's also in your interest or in the municipality's interest to know what's happening, right? Because ultimately municipalities, they purchase electricity from a single supplier in most cases, except for the ones that are now looking at having sort of municipal DERs or distributed energy generators within their precinct or vicinity or their area of choice. And ultimately, there's an opportunity to trade the energy the excess energy that you generate from your system back to the grid. So with that in mind, it's in your interest to comply fully with whatever is required. And we ensure that you comply fully. So once an installation before commissioning is done, we make the applications, we do the submissions, we give you your COC, the commissioning engineers on site. So everything is done in that manner, with the hope that when that becomes commonplace, because certain municipalities are doing it, certain other municipalities are a bit behind. You are able, as a customer, to benefit from trading the excess energy that's produced on your roof or produced from your roof. And even from a spec perspective, because we have our own hybrid energy storage system called the PACE, we make sure that it has the capacity of pushing energy back to the grid. In case that happens in the future, and you're then able to benefit from it.
So how long does typically installation take from you guys in this whole process that involves also the municipality and also insurance? Let's talk insurance. Who does also the insurance fall on?
Yeah. So in installation, if everything is good in terms of the roof is fine, we've done our load bearing test, everything works out there, the DB board is wired correctly, installation should take a day. Right, and then probably you have the next day for testing and commissioning. So let's call it 2 days. Right? We typically finish our installations in 1.5 days to 2. But most of the work is done on the first day. You're pretty much done. And what we've done is we have the PACE, right, which is an all-in-one energy storage system, which is plug and play. So you basically move in with this, PACE, you stick it on the wall. You have your AC, your grid wire going to the DB board, and then you have your backup wire. Then you separate the loads, and that's pretty much it. It's done. That shortens the time frame. From an insurance perspective, that falls under your household insurance if you've taken complete ownership of the system. If the system is ours and it's still on a lease, it's covered by our business insurance. But there's always the issue around who's at fault. So if you're at fault for any damage to it, then it's covered by your insurance. And then if it's something that's related to us. And then there's things such as the insurance that covers the installers when they're on site. There's also insurance that they take out, right? But we have an umbrella insurance that covers all of those aspects. And then from a regulation perspective, submission of those documents, you fill in the documents, it probably takes you a week to submit. The COC is issued on site, probably a day or two after the installation, right? So let's just say from the time that you show interest, you sign up and are ready to go, we're looking at probably 2 weeks to get you up and running. But it's municipality dependent, right? So Gauteng, for example, it's a lot quicker. Cape Town might take a bit more time, but it's all municipality dependent, and some of it is just a function of how quickly we get those things done.
So you guys do connections for all over the country?
So we started out as a Gauteng focused business, right? But now we have to branch out because lots of demand outside of Gauteng, right? So our view was for the next 2 or 3 years, we focus on Gauteng only. But I was recently in Durban a week ago, where I met with a lot of customers who, for whatever reason, like our approach and would prefer if we were the guys giving them this service and providing this platform for them to experience a different way of interacting with energy in their home. So we have to make that move, right? Cape Town as well is a very interesting market in the sense that I think in Cape Town you're preaching to the converted. These guys are already ready and raring to go in terms of we want it makes sense, let's get going, let's get it done. So we're actively expanding into those markets. And we're not just expanding in terms of sales and marketing, but actually having physical presence, because we have to, because that's where the opportunities are. And what we're really trying to achieve is just to get as many customers experiencing energy in the manner that we believe it should be experienced in their home or in their workplace.
What's the difference between you guys and a Tesla Powerwall?
So the main difference with the Tesla Powerwall is the Powerwall is primarily a battery. So you still need an inverter, a solar inverter. And Tesla's actually started manufacturing solar inverters. So the Powerwall is one element. But the nice thing about the Powerwall as well is that you can have it without having solar, rooftop solar. So it's solar ready, but you can have a Powerwall in the absence of having rooftop solar. And I think the main difference with us is cost, right? Ours is, without compromising 1 inch on quality, right? It's slightly more cost effective. And we're moving more towards the energy storage system all in one. So with as little moving separate parts as possible, what you get is one standard system. Then that's what we're aiming towards. So from a cost perspective, and everything that goes into the PACE, which is our product, is tier 1, right? Top 10 manufacturer in the world goes into our product, and we do all the research on what needs to go into that. And then there are other things as well that we're doing quite a lot of R&D on, which are, let's call it localization of the experience, right? Because it's one thing to go and get a product from, which is EU standards or US standards, but there's localization aspects that need to be taken into consideration. And there's other things as well, such as just things like frequency, right? US is 60 hertz, this is 50 hertz. So there's other things that we need to take into consideration. But for us, we're driving towards an experience-related approach to it. So I mentioned things like home automation. I mentioned things like electric vehicle integration. There are other things that we're looking into, which is complete utility services for the home, right? So things like rainwater harvesting in line with that. Once you have rainwater harvesting, you have pumping. And with pumping, there's the energy aspect to it. So we're looking at other things where the PACE on its own as a piece of hardware and has its software that's supporting it is going to become the most fundamental and important part of the energy dynamic in your home. It will all be controlled from that. So that's why we call PACE the heart. It's the heart of everything that we do.
So then, in terms of, because I was reading an article that Eskom now wants to also charge people who have solar in their homes. So can you give us like shed some light on in terms of what that means?
So that one is important. It's important to understand where Eskom is coming from, right? So Eskom has set up infrastructure, built transmission and distribution infrastructure, which provides us with the power that we use, right? So they have basically gone out into the market, borrowed, set it up. Some of it is fully amortized, so it's old infrastructure. But that's trying to figure out what the age of their entire fleet is and that kind of stuff. So they've set it up. It exists. We are making use of it, right? So when we come and we give you a solar solution, right? We are basically saying, okay, make use of what we've provided, but also Eskom will provide you with the power that you would require in the absence of the solar, right? So Eskom's argument is it costs them money to make the power available, right? Because if you think about it, they have a very large coal fleet and they have a very small, call it quickly dispatchable fleet. So this would be your OCGT, your gas and your diesel. So to keep the system energized for your evening peaks, they're running a coal-fired power plant. So there's a cost associated with that. We're completely aware of that cost, and we're happy that Eskom has come to a realization that, look, a large part of our cost structure is fixed costs. The question, though, now is price elasticity, right? And at what point do customers stop caring, right? Because if you charge me a high fixed cost, and I'm not looking at this from a cost perspective, I'm looking at it from an energy availability perspective, it almost doesn't matter, right? And when we were doing some of our surveys, there are certain customers that don't care. They don't care how much it costs as long as it's available. So that dynamic also needs to be factored in and needs to be considered. And also with high fixed costs, there's always the issue of fairness, right? Around you can't charge me 2,000 rand for a service that I haven't made use of.
Yes.
So the way that the fixed cost is also embedded into the price has to account for fair usage, right? I need to use the 2,000 rands worth of fixed costs that you've put into that. So look, for us as an industry, when it first came out, we looked at it and we were quite interested to figure out how it would work. Yes. And we're quite keen to see what it's going to look like when it's now a reality and it's now, and customers are now looking at it on the face of their bills.
Okay. So then just to like give us a typical, like obviously like in terms of the earlier example that you gave where a certain individual was paying 3,000, now they're no longer paying 3,000. With what Eskom is proposing, basically they're going to have to also pay another amount on top of
the amount that they pay.
Yeah.
They might have to. But you see, the way that, how do I put it? Because energy it's not like buying cartons of milk, right? So say the fixed charge becomes 1,000 rand, and that's all I then make use of. So we're not really certain that it's going to lead to higher energy bills for the customer in reality. Because the thing about energy is there's always an energy usage charge. So some smart customers might, switch to a very different way of operating.
Yes.
I'll give you an example. Guys might start cooking a lot earlier.
Yes.
To avoid higher energy charges, right? And so there's a lot that's at play that we have to actually see play out in reality, as opposed to the theory around it. But all I can say is Eskom's approach to charging higher fixed charges for people who have solar systems is not completely wrong. It's justified. But at what point does it penalize people who are not trying to save on costs, who just want to have power available all the time, right? And that's the balancing act that I guess NERSA as a regulator and to some extent the body that protects the consumer protection bodies need to take a look at. And civil society as well. I mean, they have a say in this in the sense that it's one thing to charge me a lot of money for it, make it available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk useful life of the solar systems that you guys have. What's the average useful life, and who does the maintenance? I think earlier on you touched on it and you said you guys would do 5 years maintenance if I was to like outright buy at the end of the 12-month period.
So panels come with a warranty of about 25 years. That's the typical warranty for panels. Your inverter, typically it's between 5 and 10 years, your hybrid inverter. Your batteries between 7 and 15 years. And then workmanship is about 5 years warranty on that. For our systems, right, it's 25 years on the panels, 10 years on the inverter, 10 years on the batteries.
Okay,
right,
that's impressive.
Yeah, that's the warranty, and then 5 years on the workmanship, right. But sometimes the warranty, it also depends on what has gone into the pace, right? So, but the minimum is 5 years on the inverter and 7 years on the battery. So that's the minimum standard for us. Okay. You get a lot of cheaper inverters that have a 1 year warranty. We don't touch those at all, right? For those reasons, and that's it. And then when it comes to monitoring, lifetime remote monitoring. So for as long as you have an inverter and a power plant that's been provided by us, you have lifetime monitoring. On the maintenance side, you have two intervals, two maintenance incidents per year. One round about mid-winter and then one mid-summer, where a team comes, they clean the panels, they check on the earthing of the system, they check on cable looseness, they check on battery health, and also provide you with tips and guidance, and also a report on how you've been performing from a data perspective. Okay. So that comes as standard, right? So if we sell you a system for cash, in that price that is embedded, you will get that service without fail. If we sell the system on a lease, you will get that service for as long as you're a lease customer.
Oh, okay.
So that's the primary view on that.
Okay. So then, like, just maybe a bit of a derail. Like we're seeing a lot in these estates. They have these solar geysers. How do they work? because a lot of people are really not seeing the benefit of those solar geysers per se.
So with solar geysers, right? Solar, I mean, your water heating accounts for about 30 to 40% of your electricity bill, right? Just your geyser.
30 to 40%.
Typically, right? How households differ, but that's the typical, statistics that are thrown around. And with solar water heaters, there's a study that was done by a local university, which says the difference, or at least the comparison was, you can get a solar water heater, or you can get rooftop PV that continues to supply power supplies power to your entire home and supplies power to your existing geyser. And from that study, the professor concluded that it's better to get solar PV as opposed to getting a solar geyser and something to that extent. So I think the benefit is there. The major issue is there's no data around it. Right. So you get the solar geyser, you start to make a lot of assumptions on whether or not there's any benefit from getting a solar water heater, and that's the reality of it. And part of what we're trying to do as well, from let's call it from a data perspective, is the information is always there, right? So we collect it, we do the data mining, we harvest it, and we present it to you, and that's extremely important, right? And I think with a lot of the solar water heaters is that they've gone up on people's roofs, and people don't see the benefit. There's no app or there's no report that says, because you have a solar water heater, this is how much you saved. Versus if you had a traditional geyser, this is how much you would have consumed. So I think that's where there's an information gap there. So I wouldn't necessarily say that the homes that have solar water heaters are not getting a benefit. I think they are getting a benefit. I mean, the science definitely suggests that there is a benefit. It's just that the data is not available.
Okay. I don't know if there's anything from my side, or I mean from your side, that you feel that we should cover and that we might have left out.
Yeah, I think your platform, especially when it comes to, I think the irony around it being for ignorant millennials and what is, I think millennials are very informed. They are informed about things that matter to them, but have been simplified. Right? And for us as a company, we're looking at the informed and uninformed as our target customers or people that we want to have join our platform, right? And the beauty of it is, as long as it's simple, people will understand it, right? So I always use this analogy. If you remember ADSL, the transition from ADSL to fiber now, right? Was they told you about the cost of the router. They told you about your upload and download speed. They told you about out of bundle rates and all other things, right? And at the end of the day, you got a bill that was confusing. And then, the fiber guys just came and said, $5.99 per month, 10 megabytes speed, upload and download. They made it so simple. So now all you manage is it up or is it down? You don't worry about, am I streaming Netflix too much? Right? You don't care about that stuff. And that is where a business that serves millennials or serves people, and remember, it's millennials is one part of it. Then there's the generations coming after that, right? A business that's going to serve people in the future needs to simplify the customer experience. Forget about what happens in the back end and all the other crazy and the AI, the machine learning, and all the complicated stuff that's happening in the background. I should simply be able to understand that if I want my power on, it's on. And if it's off, I need to understand why it's off and when it's going to come on again. And that's where we're going. And I think your platform debunks or demystifies a lot of things that,
thank you very much,
that customers or just people in general who are looking for information, would not necessarily be able to have a platform that allows for that to happen. And sometimes just simplifying even the approach to explaining it, right? If say we were on a talk show or news or whatever, I would also be speaking in complicated things about returns and other things. But I think simplicity is the most important thing, and I think your platform allows people on whatever day they decide to go onto your channel and just be like, hey, want to find out about this. And I think that's great, and I'm really happy to have spent some time with you guys and given you a bit of insight.
We're very honored for you for allowing yourself to and availing yourself to come through and inform the millennials out there about electricity and solar energy and everything else. And if people want to pass by your offices, you guys have physical presence?
So we have a physical presence. We're moving into new offices, but I will let you know when we move into those slightly bigger. So we operate mostly from a very small office, and we have warehousing facilities, and we have a factory that we contract out where the paste is actually assembled. So we want to move into an office with a showroom. So that should happen in the next 6 or so months. And then you'll be able to. But we're available online, I mean, and you can give us a call. I'm always willing to get on a consultation and have a chat.
Ignorant Millennials, that's it from me and Vincent, and their contact details and their website will have appeared at some point during the interview. I hope you take note of them, and they're probably appearing even now. And I hope you give them a shout. And let's do the right thing there and convert to solar energy. As we've seen, the electricity has become pretty unstable in South Africa. I mean, this is an issue we've had since 2008. And we were promised that it would be gone by like 2015, I think it was then, right?
I don't want to be the prophet of doom, but expect it to continue for quite some time. I mean, what are we getting as an increase this year? 15%. That's 15% on MYPD, which is the multi-year price determination, and the regulatory clearing account. Next year, expect, because at some point I'm sure the Eskom CEO was talking about burning diesel, so expect more from the regulatory clearing account in terms of an increase. So I think it's going to be a long journey, a tough journey until the system stabilizes. But I think one politician once said, hey, look, don't worry about what happens. The young people will save us. And I guess this is evidence of it. If we just move in a particular direction, we can create a sustainable...
Well, you are those people who are here to save us.
We hope so.
Yes.
We hope so.
Ignorant Millennials, sorry. I hope you guys, this man is making me nervous. Hey, as you could tell, he's very articulate in what he says over there. But Ignorant Millennials, this has been real for me and Vincent. We hope that you enjoyed the episode, and we hope that you found it quite useful and informative. We out.
Perfect. Thanks. Cheers.